3, 2, 1.
Here we go!
You have a history in the matchmaking realm in some sort of form, correct?
Yeah, I've been in the entrepreneur world for a really long time. I was a wedding planner for 12 years, and then I launched it was a hybrid between a dating app and a matchmaking service. So we had clients that hired us, hired our matchmaking services, but you could also use the app, the freemium version, so you could see all of the clients that we represent. And then we pivoted actually to software. So we were trying to build a software platform for all matchmakers, and we were going to be B2B, so switch from B2C to B2B. But unfortunately, I couldn't land all the funding that was needed for that. But yes, had a short time in the matchmaking industry.
That's interesting. It makes me kind of wonder how much similarity is there in like understanding people's personas and their authentic self to like a leadership perspective or helping people kind of run their business. Do you think there is any of that?
I do. I think that self-awareness is so important, right? But it's hard because we've been so programmed to buy into all the things that we feel like we have to do or that we should do, especially in the dating world, right? A lot of times you'll make a list of all of these things that you want, and some of them don't even mean anything, like height, like when it comes down to it, And so in the matchmaking space, people would get so fixated on things that we felt didn't truly matter to have like a true, genuine, authentic connection, right? If someone's 5'10" versus 5'11", and someone was really fixated on that, it was interesting to see how people would react to that. And a lot of it was like a lot of the women, wanted men that were over 6 foot tall. And I think it's really society and programming that we found a lot of it. But then how it relates in leadership in business, what is same kind of situation where I find a lot of the leaders that I work with feel like they have to hit certain metrics because that's what their businesses are supposed to do. It's not necessarily what they truly want or what might not be right and aligned for them. So it's interesting to think that, or to see that what we think we need or we want might not actually be what is best aligned for our authentic true self.
So how do you deal with that conversation with the person? Because like you have to set their expectations, right? Or do you just kind of give them some options and kind of hope that they are blind to it's not what they quote unquote asked for?
As far as the coaching industry now and what I do?
I mean, either one. I guess they're both relatively similar. I think when someone kind of has a certain expectation for the thing that they want, whether it's a partner or whether it's what their business and their schedule looks like, I think that there's unrealistic expectations in both places. And I think as someone's coach or as their matchmaker, right, you're trying to help them go from the thing that they think they want to realizing joy, right? Whether joy looks like finding the perfect partner for them or finding a successful business, right? You're trying to kind of help bridge the gap between the thing that they want versus the thing that they actually need.
Absolutely. So when it comes to, for instance, building a business, we'll ask the why. What's the deeper desire behind the goal or the vision that the leader or the business owner is building? And that usually comes down to the root of it is something like freedom or safety, or so as long as they can get to the root that makes sense to them, then that's great, right? So that's kind of how we start with understanding someone's why. What is why they want to build the vision. It's getting down to that deeper root of that, of the deeper desire. And then from there, understanding, well, where are you now and what's holding you back? Because a lot of the reasons that we're not hitting those goals, because once you understand the deeper desire, let's say it's because of security. And it might be a limiting belief or a block that's holding us back. And that limiting belief or block might be insecurity, right? Like, I'm not hitting my goals because I need to go out there and speak on stage more, and I need to do more sales calls, or I need to do whatever that is, but I'm afraid of being seen. And when you get down why I'm afraid of being seen, it's insecurity, which then you look at the two desires, right? You got the desire of wanting to build this company that's going to ultimately bring you security. That's what you're looking for in this company. But then you have this subconscious thought of insecurity. So what we have is called competing desires. So we see that both in and I mean, it can be I haven't been in the dating industry in so long now, so I don't even really think about that anymore. But as far as like leadership and entrepreneurship, same thing. We have these competing desires. So you have to work through those fears, work through the limiting beliefs, work through the blocks to understand, like, I hear you, I see that you're trying to protect me, but that I'm going to work through this insecurity so I can step into that, into building that vision, which is going to ultimately bring me the security that I'm looking for.
That's a very good point. I love that. And it makes me think about, even just in my own relationships, whether it's with my wife or whether it's with a customer, kind of understanding their expectation. And a lot of times the thing that they verbally ask for isn't actually what they really want, right? So that there's some level of interpretation needed. And it also makes me think about this expression where a lot of the trouble comes from uncommunicated needs that are unmet, right? So unmet expectations from uncommunicated needs, I think is the proper term there, right? So there are these things that I'm expecting my partner to do, and then I get all pissed off when they don't do it, but I never actually verbalize and say, hey, it would be nice if you did X, Y, and Z, right? I just get frustrated because they don't do it, and then I'm mad at them for no reason, and then they're clueless, right? How often do you see that sort of thing play out?
As far as like in business and
Yeah, I think honestly, to me, I think there's a lot of similarity there because it's really just relationships, right?
right.
All of this, whether it comes down to
100%.
dating or
Everyone's
business, is
relationship.
really just interpersonal relationships.
Yeah. So, I mean, as far as I work one-on-one with clients, so I don't work with business owners and leaders as far as like what they're asking for in their employees. But you make a very good point that a lot of times it's just even what we're asking for within ourselves, right? Getting really quiet and understanding, like, what is it that you're needing. This reminds me of the movie, your situation you just described, the breakup with Jennifer Aniston and Vince Vaughn. Did you ever see that movie?
Yeah.
And she's like, I want you to do the dishes. And he's like, and it wasn't about the dishes. She was like, I want to do the dishes. She didn't want the dishes done. There was something else. There was a deeper desire. There was a root of what she wanted. What she probably wanted was a organized, clean house where she felt inner peace. So what she really wanted was inner peace, but she was asking him to do the dishes, right? So it always, 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 whenever we're asking something of ourselves, building a business, asking something of a person that we're in a relationship with, understanding, well, why am I asking them to do this? Why am I asking myself to do this? Like, what is it that I really want? I don't necessarily want them to do the dishes. I just want a clean house. And when I have a clean house, it's peace, it's ease inside. And that is what you're really asking for.
Yeah. Now, how do you ask for that without it coming off as, hey, you're not providing me a clean house? Because I think there's a certain level of defensiveness that comes about. At least I've seen this in certain scenarios. And obviously, a clean house is just one example, but I think there's a lot of different examples we could pull from where people are going to be defensive about the thing that you're asking for. So you say, hey, I'd love a clean house because a clean house makes me feel inner peace and happy. The other person hears, hey, you suck as a partner. You're not doing a good job. Right. So is it over communicating? Is it like, what does the communication look like in good partnerships or good relationships in general?
I think that it's about taking responsibility. We love to, um, oh, this person could have done this or this person could have that. Start with yourself. Take responsibility for what you're needing and see if you can in-source that first, right? So do everything in your power just to own your own stuff. A lot of times we don't want to own our own stuff, right? But then it just comes down to having that communication and having clear communication and seeing if they understand your that deeper desire, that what you're actually asking for. A lot of people don't communicate that deep, right? They just are like, pick up the socks, and they're yelling at someone to like pick up their socks. But it's like, what is that really about? And a lot of people aren't having those deeper conversations. So, one, own your own stuff. But two, if your spouse or partner or boss is asking something of you and you're not completely understanding, well, why is this? Ask them why. What is it that you're really, really wanting? Because there could be another solution. There could be like, well, we're just going to get a maid. Like, let's just hire a maid to come every day. Like, there you go. There's, you know what I mean? Like, there's a solution. It doesn't necessarily have to be that your partner has to do something exactly how you want it done. Communicate together and try to find a solution that works for both of you.
Yeah. How much of that do you think has to do with, like, we talked about doing the self work first, right? But where do you start with that? So if you're someone who's interested in having a better life experience overall, you need to do some self work where you take the self accountability, but that's a hard place to start without some level of support group or some really good friend who's going to kind of shoulder the weight with you. Like, where does that person start that transformation?
It's you don't even need anyone. You don't need a support group. You need everything we need is already inside of us, which is absolutely incredible. Even the things that we are calling in. So, for instance, if I want to buy a house, and then I get down to the root, the deeper desire of, well, why do you want that house? And it's like, well, because it provides sense of safety. I can in-source that safety now. I can go back to a time where I felt safe, and I can create that internally. So that's like the first step, is truly realizing that everything we need, it's already within us. And that can be, if you're not used to doing that, that can be hard. That's why there's coaches, right? That's why there's people out there like me to help you figure that out. But once you start to realize, oh my goodness, everything that I need is actually internally already in me, then you can start doing the personal self growth work of rediscovering your purpose. A lot of times people think that your purpose is what you're here to do. It's not. It's actually rediscovering who you are, what lights you up, what are the things that you love to do, and then build and create a life around that. That right there is going to bring you a tremendous amount of happiness and joy, right? If you're always trying to get things from other people, things from materialistic, like those feelings and emotions, you're always going to be in that lack scarcity mindset of always needing more. So that's the very first thing, is understanding, one, I can in-source it. Two, what is my purpose? What are the things that light me up? And then realizing that, okay, what are those things that I need? What do I have right now that brings that to me?
Right.
And start there. That's just like the easiest step. So, for instance, I'm doing an abundance challenge right now with my group, and we're really focused on, don't focus on all the things that we want in the future, but for today's all about freedom. And it's like, a lot of times we're building, financial freedom, or all of these things that we want to build in the future. How can we in-source that right now? So, for instance, the choices that I made today, they're my choices. I have the freedom to work out the time that I want to, and do all the things. So how can I in-source that today without trying to rely on someone else? Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah. So it starts with
So
understanding your purpose.
yeah, for you, what was your journey like to understand your purpose? Like, was there a defining moment for you? What did that experience look like in your world?
My sister had started talking to me about this growth journey that she was on in a practice she was doing, and it was meditation and manifestation. And she suggested to me that I should start meditating. And I thought, oh, there's just absolutely like no way. I don't think I can quiet my mind for like 2 minutes, yet alone an hour. Right. So I started, and I'll be honest, I didn't do well. And that was mainly because of myself. I was telling myself I couldn't do it. Well, of course I'm not going to be able to do it. Right. So then once I realized that I was blocking myself from my own growth journey, I decided there's a couple programs, To Be Magnetic and Dr. Joe Dispenza, that I started following. And I thought, wow, these practices are really, really interesting. So I started reading. I started reading on all of the different practices that people do to begin their growth journey. And a lot of it comes down to meditation and being present and living in the moment. And it's actually really hard. And it seems like, oh, yeah, I live for the moment. But think about how many times we're thinking about the future, or how many times we're thinking about the past and trying to predict the future. It's actually a lot harder than we think to live in the present. So that's really where I started with those practices. And then I hired my own coach to help me embrace my emotional authenticity and vulnerability, and really like step into that. And what does that look like to be vulnerable? What does it look like to ask for help? What does it look like to pretend like I don't got all my shit together? You know what I mean? Like, what we all, especially with Instagram and social media and all these things, it's so easy for everyone to pretend like, oh, like life is so great. um but is it like, but is it like, is right now, like, are you 100% like truly fulfilled? And it's okay if you're not, right? It's okay to ask for help, and it's okay to, to want to be better. We should always be growing. So yeah, that's how I started, and it's been quite the journey.
I love that. Do you think that there's like a limiting factor when it comes to having to feel like you need to understand what the end goal is? Or is there this part that's like really falling in love with the journey aspect of it and who you're becoming, rather than putting this pressure on yourself to feel like you need to have a super specific end goal in mind before you can even start?
No, I think that the beauty is the beauty's in the journey. The beauty is in the unknown. That is where true growth happens, right? Being comfortable with not knowing the end, knowing that it's going to work out even better than you can plan it. Like, we're not supposed to know the end, right? Like, whether you believe in God, the universe, whatever the higher power is, there's a quote, and I'm blanking on it right now, but it's like, it's a joke with like, tell God your plans and he'll laugh, and he'll show you a better path. It's something along those lines. But I think that that's so true. I think that the things that I've like, called in my life, and the path that I thought like, oh, I should take this path. And then all of a sudden, this new path becomes available, one that couldn't even like see, or like my mind couldn't even visualize it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that worked out way better than I could ever imagine. So yeah, the beauty is in the unknown, and the beauty is in trusting and surrendering to what could unfold.
Yeah, I love that. So for someone who's starting on this process, is it really just a matter of sitting with yourself, maybe starting a gratitude journal, starting to kind of understand where you're at as kind of like their first step?
I love a gratitude journal. I also love a joy journal. So every
Mm.
day, write down all of the things that made you smile. And it doesn't have to be this huge win, right? You didn't have to get some big award to have joy and happiness in your life. What are the little tiny things that made you smile throughout your entire day? And then you start to really see like, what in my life right now is bringing me the most happiness. And then what is not serving me? It's okay to cut people and things out of your life if they're not on your growth journey. It doesn't mean they're bad people. It just means that they're not leveling up to the level that you're going, right? So so joy journal and gratitude is the two great places to start, and then really getting quiet with yourself and saying, okay, what's not working? Like, what's draining me? What is sucking my energy out? Like, all of a sudden I'm excited and I have all this joy, and then bam, it switches. What was that thing? What was that person? What was that place? What was that thing that triggered you that you need to either remove out of your life or work through?
That's a very good point. I remember I was doing a little bit of pre-show research, and I saw you had a video about walking on the treadmill. Can you go into that concept a little bit? Because I think that would be a really powerful message for people to hear.
Yeah, so I'm a big believer. I like ease mode over hustle mode, right? I feel like so many people, so many entrepreneurs, business owners, leaders in general feel that we have to hustle, like just go at all costs. It does not matter what it takes to get there. And so when it relates to the treadmill, you see people sprinting on a treadmill, just giving it their all. I mean, they could be breaking their own, personal record on the treadmill, but they're not actually moving forward, right? And then visualize a person walking next to the treadmill, and that person walking at a slow pace is actually moving forward and getting places that person on the treadmill is not going, right? So sometimes it's not it's about the effort. Hard work is about the effort, but it's about the energetics that we put in behind the effort. So if we're in this constant state of stress and overwhelm, so like if I'm sprinting for 10 minutes, like that's hard, right? Like my body is under a lot of stress. I probably can't breathe. My nervous system is dysregulated. I'm not going to be able to last at that pace. But if I'm building, if I'm creating, if I'm moving with ease and certainty and a regulated, nervous system and happiness and joy, I'm going to be able to get further. And while I'm climbing that mountain or while I'm on that journey, I am filling my cup along the way. I'm not waiting till I hit the top of the mountain and then say, okay, once I hit to the top of the mountain, then I'm going to be happy. Then I'm going to find, then I'm going to have all the abundance that I need. No, as I'm getting to the journey, I'm making sure that, or the destination, I'm making sure that I'm filling up my cup along the way, and I'm doing it with ease, and I'm moving forward faster than that person that's, sprinting on the treadmill with the dysregulated nervous system.
Yeah. It reminds me a lot of this expression that I use probably too much, but people who wear busyness as a badge of honor. And I feel like you see it so often where someone's like so frantic all the time. Every time you meet them, they're so busy doing everything, but they never get anywhere.
Yes.
And I think that there's such a hustle culture, and I used to be this way years ago. You feel like you have to be the hardest worker in the room, and if you're not at the office first and at the office last, and outworking everybody, then you're a failure. And I think that there's almost some people who might look down on the person who takes the day off to go hang out with their family or do something else because they're not working hard enough. And I think people have a hard time quantifying what smart work is. If the person is able to take a day off and enjoy their life and then come in and accomplish more in 6 hours than the other person does in 16, who's truly, more efficient? And I think we have a hard time kind of quantifying, and even more so, why are we comparing in the first place?
Yeah, well, and I think even going deeper than that, you take those two people, right? The person that is, and by the way, this used to be me. I used to get up at 5 in the morning because I thought I had to. Like I was watching videos with, these entrepreneurs. Like I get up at 5 a.m. and I get my workout. I'm like, oh gosh, I guess I got to get up at 5 a.m. Heck, like I cannot believe I did that. I love to sleep. Now I'm sleeping until 6:30. Like I'm not getting up at 5 a.m. Like I need my sleep. But so that person that gets up at 5 a.m. and is hustle culture and and just doesn't take a vacation, might look at what I'm doing as, okay, well, maybe they're not working hard and working as hard as me. That's probably how they would look at it, right? But let's take those two people, the two that you just described, and let's, on their deathbeds, let's place them side by side. And the person that didn't, take a vacation, they're not taking their achievements with them when they pass. They're not taking their work with them. They're not taking their money with them. They're not taking any of that with them, right? They're only taking their soul. And so you have to get quiet with yourself and say, well, did you fulfill your soul? Were you truly, truly happy and make time for the things that mattered for you? And that other person that, took time to go on vacation and took time with their loved ones and to do the things that they love to do besides work, that person is going to look back, and what truly fulfilled their soul more than likely is those memories that they created, right? And they do get to take that soul that feels fulfilled. That's what they're taking with them. So I think that the people that are still living in that hustle culture, they're going to have a rude awakening soon, I think, and I actually was talking to one of my guy friends, and his mom sadly passed away from cancer about a month ago. And she actually did say that she was sick, and she was like, what was this all for? I didn't make time for a lot of the things that I should have done because she worked so hard. She was a woman really trying to prove her worth at the workplace. And so she felt like she had to, show up earlier than the men and almost like give more to prove that she was worth more than the men in the office. And she said, looking back, she would have done it completely different. She would have known her worth and being okay just as she is. And if she left the office at 3:00 to pick her children's up, or, she wanted to be at home to make, dinner for her kids, that at the end of the day, those are the things that she said she wished she would have, put more time into.
Yeah. So I know this is a bit of a pivot from what we were just talking about, but what you just said there kind of reminded me of, and I'd love to hear your take on it. The concept of, like, whether you want to call it feminism or whatever term you want to put on it, there's terms like toxic masculinity is also kind of relevant in this conversation. You see so often, the same sort of thing, someone who is out trying to kind of prove their worth or prove their point, or who's more important. And I'm trying to figure out, how do we solve this problem, right? It's the kind of scenario where everybody loses, I think, currently. There are people who are doing this sort of thing where they're not really operating in their natural self. They are kind of making all these crazy sacrifices to try and prove to who, I don't know, that they are worth it or they are more important. And I feel like, from my perspective, and I'd love to hear your take, a lot of this comes from men who are not respecting the women in their lives and who are treating them as subpar or not equal. And I think that there's a lot of, you could probably walk this line a lot of different ways, but when it comes to not equal, right? They're not supposed to be equal. The king and queen move in different ways. Okay. And it's not supposed to be one is more important than the other. And I think that's the differentiating factor that a lot of people don't realize. And I'm just trying to figure out, how do men show up better, right? So if there's a perspective that you might have, I'd love to hear it. But I guess let's start there. How do men show up better?
That's a good question. Well, let's go back to, I don't know, like, the word equal, I would say, like, for me, it comes down to worth. And I think that everybody has the same level of worth. I don't attach worth to gender, age. I don't identify with anything. Achievements. I'm not any more worthy than, you know, than Joe or John or what. Like, it doesn't that. I don't see it like that, right? I
Right.
see that we all are truly, if you get down to your soul, if you get down to your essence, we're all just as worthy as the next person. And so when it comes to, like, being equal, I don't even like that. What, I'm not even totally sure what that means. Like, does that mean that we'll all equally worthy? Yeah, 100%. Like we're all worthy. But as far as the word equal, I don't know. I don't necessarily wouldn't put that in my vocabulary. For me, it's more about like we all have the same level of worth. Someone might look at that as like we all have the equal self-worth. But as far as men showing up differently, you know, I have been lucky in that I've always had a tremendous amount of support from men, starting with my father who helped fund my very first company, right? So I've been lucky in the sense that I've had mentors. I've had like an incredible amount of male and female mentors that have um that have really felt like supported. So I'm probably not the best person to ask this question to, because I feel like I'm like on a totally different timeline. I'm like, are people still arguing about that? Like to me, it's just like everyone is worthy. And when is everyone going to wake up and do the inner work and see that about themselves? See, like, I
Yeah.
am so freaking worthy. Like, and no one can take my worth away, and not one achievement or something else can make me less or more worthy than like the next person, and once we all come to that realization that, oh, you're just as worthy as I am, and I'm just as worthy as that person. What are we arguing about?
Mm. Yeah.
you
Makes me
know?
think maybe we're comparing equal to uh, some arbitrary measurement that no one really knows, right?
Yeah.
What is
So,
that thing that we're trying to measure against that no one can actually pinpoint?
yeah. And I feel like a lot of times might be status or like gender. Like we're always trying to measure something against something. And to
Right.
me, it's, it's the soul, it's your essence. Um, it's who you are on the inside. I mean, this is just a body that like I didn't like design my body, right? I didn't design like, and the achievements are just achievements. Like if you take away someone's achievements, like you're not going to take away their self-worth. Like a lot of people fall down mountains, right? They're climbing and they fall down, and it's like, to me, if I see that person climbing, I'm like, wow, that person's amazing. And when I see them fall, I'm not like, not so much anymore, right? They're still amazing. They're learning, and they're getting up and they're doing it again. So it doesn't, I think once we remove all identity, all attachments, anything that we associate like worth with or equal, we're just all here on earth doing our best, right? Like as best as we can. And I think we just need to respect each other and really be like, you're not, understand that like you're not worthy than the next person any more worthy than the next person. We all have the same level of worth within us.
Yeah. I love that. I think that's a great lesson that people could take. I mean, there's obviously a lot of great lessons in this conversation, but just as far as about being confident in who you are, who you've been designed to be, right? Each person has a very specific calling on their life, and we may not necessarily truly know that yet. And that's kind of part of the journey, is figuring out what that is.
That
But it's
that
not
is a
about
oh sorry.
comparing. Now, I was going to say it's not about comparing my purpose versus yours.
Yes, you nailed it, Jim. It's like if like comparing you to Elon Musk, right? Elon Musk, or anyone to Elon Musk. He's built all of these like billion-dollar companies. Like my God, like that guy, right? But I don't think Elon's soul, or him and his person, is any more worthy than you or I. Right. So it's like just putting us all on, as far as worth, putting us all on the same playing field, and stop attaching ourselves to achievements or other things in our lives.
Yeah. Because I mean, there's obviously so many different metrics to compare against, right? Whether it's
Yes.
net worth, whether it's height, whether it's whatever. Like you could pick any number of metrics, like we talked about before. But I think ultimately it's about joy. Personally, that's how I measure success. Success to
Yes.
me, the definition of success in my world is the easiness that you could bring joy into a difficult situation. And I think if you can very easily bring joy into whatever it is, could be paying your bills, could be a stressful day at work, could just be a normal day. the level of easiness you have to tap into joy, to me, that's what success is. If you can easily bring joy into anything you do, that is how I measure success. And I love that definition because it's internal. I'm
I
not
love
relying on anyone else's control over whether or not I am successful.
I absolutely love that. And I think you're spot on. And especially when it comes to, I think you just said like paying bills. But so, like, when I write a bill, I'm like, I'm so thankful for this car payment because it allows me, it's not about the car, it allows me to get from to place A to place B with ease.
Right.
Right. Or you're paying your mortgage or your rent. And it's very, very easy. Like these things come in, and you're like, oh, another bill. And you can like let that get to you. But it's like, no, have gratitude for that because it gives you a space to create memories and feel safe and find that joy within your home with your family. Right. So I love looking, there's always, always a way to find gratitude and find joy in everything that we do.
Mhm. I want to challenge you on that a little bit because I know this is true of
Oh,
me and I want to see your perspective on it. Do you still get into situations where you don't immediately feel that joy?
oh,
Because,
I just posted something today on Instagram. So yeah, so I'm doing the abundant challenge where it's like all about finding the joy and the gratitude and everything today in every moment that we do, right? And I find myself, and this is where your level of consciousness kicks in, but you find yourself going into that lack mindset or that whatever the opposite of joy is for you, right? If you're sad, angry, whatever it is. But the growth is when you're able to recognize it and boom, you snap out of it and you can say like, oh, okay, we're going to make a change. And then you can change it quickly because there are going to be, it's hard to just get rid of all of the emotions. Like personal growth work, you're doing it, you have to do it every single day. This isn't something where it's like working out. If you get in really good shape and then you never work out again in your entire life, like for you to maintain that level of shape that you got into is going to be very hard. Same with the inner work, right? So we have to do the inner work, meditate or journal or whatever that is for you. And that's different for everybody. So I encourage, everyone to find their own thing, but it has to happen every single day. And then the more that it happens, you find where you're doing something and it could be that feeling, that emotion of, opposite of joy, anger, sad, whatever it is, that frustration that you get feeling. Once you're able to quickly recognize it, you can regulate and switch it. And it happens very quickly, but I can do it. So yes, long story short, I absolutely can slip back into a lack mindset or like if I get like frustrated about something, but my awareness level, it's like less than a second now and I regulate and I switch it back. So
yeah,
it's easy now.
I love to point that part out because I think that there's a lot of people who are listening who have this perception that someone like me or you is magical, perfect unicorn that never gets this thing, right? We have these wonderful lives that we still never feel frustration or whatever it is. And I think it's important to be real and say, hey, we still have these moments that we are human, we feel the emotions. But I think the difference is that the feedback loop is much shorter at this point, right? So we are able to recognize it and correct it and restore it back in a much shorter time frame. Where, a version of us from 5, 10 years ago might have had a truly bad day instead of a bad 30 seconds,
Yeah.
right? And I think that that's the important part for people to recognize, and that when you're on this journey, there is no achieving 100% perfection. And I think it's important for people to recognize that because
Mhm.
they may feel like, man, I'm not living 100% perfection joyous life, I'm a failure, or this is not for me. So I think it's important to kind of set that expectation of what this life truly feels like.
Yeah, you're spot on with the having frustration for 30 seconds instead of the entire day. That's really where the big win comes, right? There you might something might happen in your life where you feel frustrated, but instead of being frustrated, and not only just even for the day, but I mean, there's things like before my personal growth journey, I would look back at something that happened like a few years ago and it would still bother me. Like I still hadn't gotten over it, right? And so the wins come when it's like, oh my gosh, that only bothered me for 30 seconds. That only bothered me for a day and not a week. Whatever. It's a slow growth journey. It doesn't happen overnight. And it's it's a process that is going to, that we have to work on every single day, for the rest of our lives.
Yeah. I have a little post-it note that I call the pissed off pad. And what I'll do is if I'm frustrated by something, I will write it down on the pad, crumple it up and throw it out. And there's a couple things I like about that. One is it's a good reminder that like you can feel the feeling, get it out and then move on. And two is there are some times when I don't feel angry enough to sit there and write the whole thing out. I'm like, it's not even worth the effort to write this out. I'll just move on. And I share that because it's a technique I picked up a while ago. And I think it's a fun thing to say, the pissed off pad. But, it's interesting how people can develop these sort of tools or techniques to work through their emotions.
Okay, I'm stealing that idea because that is absolutely amazing. I love that. The pissed off notepad. I love that because then you're right. If you can't take the 10 seconds to write it out, it's not worth your energy. Why are we spending 2 minutes or a whole day of our energy on that emotion?
Yeah. And I think it's important for people to like recognize these things about themselves, right? Rather than, spend the entire day on it. Because how many people, I know that I've done this and I still do it on occasion until you catch yourself. It's easy to let these little stupid things kind of just take over your day. Mm-hmm. But, again, part of the work that we do is recognizing that and shortening the feedback loop. So I know that we're kind of drawing to an end on our episode time here together. I would just like to ask if there's anything that maybe is on your mind, on your heart that you'd like to share that we haven't had the opportunity to yet.
I think if there's anyone listening to this that is feeling not, maybe not happy, maybe feeling like something's out of alignment in their life, maybe feeling that, they're ready for a shift, this is your sign it's never, ever, ever too late to find joy and happiness. I don't care if you're 20 or 80 years old, right? It's never too late to start. You're exactly where you're supposed to be in this moment. This podcast, you're listening to this episode, for a reason. And I highly encourage you to start doing the personal, inner growth work, because once you do, it will absolutely change your life.
I love that. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Where can we support you?
So you can find me on Instagram. My handle is Constance Curtis, or you can check out my website at learn-here.com.
I love it. Well, thank you again. This has been an awesome conversation. I appreciate everything that you've shared. We'll certainly be in touch in the future. Again, thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you for having me, Jim.
Happy birthday to you.
Cha, cha, cha.
Happy birthday.